You're now connected to Evoke and Evolvements with our international duo. Danny is in California, USA.
And Vladdy is planted in one of my top destinations of the world, which actually used to be my home, España, Europa.
Perfecto, Danny. Through core discussions, interviews, and relating personal life awareness,
We hope to make your life journey a bit more peaceful, thus allowing our podcast and guests to educate, evoke, and entertain.
And today, our esteemed guest walked the world. Yeah, you heard correctly, walked. His adventure lasted 7 years, 28,000 miles, more than 45,000 kilometers, 6 continents, and 33 countries. He gained the title of 10th man to do so, and he didn't do it alone. His dog Savannah was directly by his side, and she became the first dog to ever walk the world.
Wow. This author, who's also a photographer and speaker, recently published his adventure in this engaging and, I'm telling you, arresting book called The World Walk. I was riveted. I was so absorbed in every page, learning, inspired, entertained by his captivating words. Now, as you'll see in a moment, he may appear to be a typical mom and apple pie, or, even a down home, oh, shucks kind of guy, but he's anything but.
And in his book, your reader will grow and evolve as he did. And it's fascinating to learn what motivated him to embark on this journey, death. The traveler will explain this grieving factor and also his other two motivators, learning about two former world walkers and, interestingly enough, watching Robin Williams' film Dead Poets Society. Let's bring our adventurer in now to our Evo podcast, Tom Turcich. Amazing journey, and that as Danny has already told, today we would like to dig deeper in you and in your transformation. So was there any?
Yeah, I mean, infinite amount, endless transformation. That's really, like, Danny finished the book. The book is all about just my growth from being a very naive suburbanite into a world traveler. So yeah, 7 years of walking, it'll change you a lot.
Well, I by saying I loved your book is an understatement, really is. I mean, your words touched me deeply. I actually had my laptop by my side while I was reading the book so I could pinpoint exactly where you were and your route. I mean, before I started reading it, I just thought it was sort of black and white, which of course nothing is black and white in life, but silly me. I thought, oh, he started in New Jersey and he just walked. Well, I mean, obviously things happened along the way. You got ill, et cetera, et cetera. And so let me ask you though, are you doing an audio book, Tom?
Yeah, I just got the masters of the audiobook yesterday, actually. And so it should be coming out pretty soon. I didn't read it myself. It was another professional audiobook reader. Sounds good. But yeah, I'm not sure when exactly. It should be coming out sometime in January, I think.
Oh, shoot. I wish it was you, but whatever. Yeah. Okay.
I know. Me too. I know. I would have loved to have read it, but I think it's like doubles the cost for them to record it because it takes longer rather than having a professional do it. So fair enough.
And it's incredible how all of this, your journey, is available to us at our fingertips. Because I'll add that the photographs, oh my God, the photographs are stunning. And you can find Tom's masterful photography displayed on his website, which we'll put up, tomturcich.com. If you will indulge me for a moment, Tom, I selfishly want to get rid of this, for me, of the elephant is sort of in the middle of the room.
Mm-hmm.
Before I read this fantastic book, The World Walk, love the title, I heard about the death of Savannah. And it really, I mean, it broke my heart. And I just want to offer my condolences and sympathy and support in your grief. Even at times while reading the book, I just had a good cry about it because I knew that, Savannah had died. I've lost pets myself, as I think Vladdy has too, and it is unbelievably painful. Fuck.
Yeah.
So thank you for letting me get that off my chest.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah. We spent every minute of every day together for 7 years, basically, and grew a lot together. So we had this really incredibly powerful, unique bond. I mean, she was the first dog to walk around the world. So by proxy, I was the first person to walk around the world with a dog. So it's this really unique bond. And yeah, I mean, it was the worst week of my life when she got sick in the summer, and then really struggled to sleep for a while. But I think what brings me some peace is I have all these memories with her that are kind of always playing in my head. And also that she lived the best life a dog could possibly live, basically, you know?
Gosh. I mean, being with her owner, her friend, her companion, all those days and nights. I mean, what better life could a dog ask for? Huh?
That's it. Yeah, going for a long walk every day, smelling new things, eating new chicken bones. Life is good.
And really a beautiful companion in the journey that is called life. Was it more a journey away from something or a journey towards something?
That's a good question. Definitely a journey towards something, I would say. I think that's like the main differentiator between me and Alexander Supertramp. I can't remember his last name, but Into the Wild. And because he very much was running away from society and I think from his troubled family life. And for me, I think it was
Chris McCandless, right?
Written yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. Chris McCandless. And so he was very much running away. And I think for me, it was the opposite, where I grew up with, a great family life. And I think having that great family life and a lot of cousins and aunts and uncles around me really helped to give me the confidence to go out into the world and then hope to discover the world. When I left, my dad had traveled and he's very much an optimist and kind of a golden retriever of a person. And so he instilled in me this belief in humanity. And I think that gave me the confidence to leave. And then also, just having this great community around me. And then for myself, I wanted to understand the world. I wanted to see what it was like for myself. I didn't want to just read about it. I didn't just want to go to the highlights. I didn't only want to see Paris and Machu Picchu and Antarctica. I wanted to see how people were really living. And so that was a real draw for me, was to go out there and try and see the world without any bias. And of course, that's not possible, but I tried to go in there without any expectations and let the world flow through me and learn about it that way. And so, it was definitely walking towards what I hope was a better understanding of the world and of humanity.
If you were one of those places you visited, what place would you be?
Maybe I would like to say France, but I don't think I'm enough of a foodie to be France. I would say maybe Denmark. I love riding my bike. I don't have a car. I love walking around. I, take care of my body, like the socialized healthcare. I love that.
Physically, emotionally, and mentally, what are those parts that have evolved in you?
At the beginning of the walk, the transition was pretty difficult. I was an athlete my whole life, but walking 6-8 hours a day is still very different from playing tennis for 2 hours a day or jogging or anything like that. So it uses all these different muscles. I lost a lot of toenails. I got a lot of blisters. I was cramping all the time in the beginning. So the physical transition, I think, or what changed most was my just stamina. By the second year of walking, or even by the end of the US, the first 5 months into walking, I was doing 24 miles a day, every day, nonstop. By the end of the walk, a little older, into my 30s, and I was walking 18 miles a day and pretty content with that. Also, I didn't have a visa, so I didn't need a visa. I was in my own country, so I was able to slow down. But so I'd say physically, probably the least amount of change. Maybe, and emotionally and mentally are both much more drastic. And I think maybe emotionally, I have changed the most in kind of just how at peace I am with myself and my lot in life, and just life in general, and the whims of fate. Where I think before, the reason I was able to walk around the world, aside from my family, was that I had this burning desire to walk around the world and to prove to myself and to everyone else that I could do this big monumental thing, and I could do what I set out to do. And also, I was very curious about who I could become. I think I always had it kind of in the back of my mind in a certain way that if I, walked far enough, and if I learned enough, and if I worked hard enough, I would sort of transcend my humanity and I would become something beyond. I don't know, it's totally unrealistic, but that's kind of how I thought about it. And partway through the walk, about a little over halfway probably, I had been walking long enough and had sort of ingrained these lessons about the world in a deep enough way, and these lessons about myself in a deep enough way, that I realized, really, you're just human and there is no escape from it. And, it's not like it's something I didn't know, but it's something then I understood really deeply. I had fulfilled, or I knew I was going to fulfill, this kind of lifelong mission to walk around the world. And despite that, I'm still just human. There was no ascension. There was no greater being. It's just you and your thoughts. So I had that kind of put me at ease in a certain way, where I stopped searching, I would say, for some greater thing. Just life is just right in front of you. And so in that way, I think I've matured emotionally tremendously. And then also on top of that, walking for 7 years is just like meditating for 7 years, basically. It's just you and your thoughts out there. So you really have to become good company with your thoughts and with yourself. And so that helped resolve any sort of internal angst that I have, and any idiosyncrasies that before might have been causing sort of chaos in my mind. And then mentally, to the third part of your question, mentally, I went from, like I said earlier, very naive suburbanite, and well-intentioned and kind and hopeful, but I had only seen a small portion of the world. My experiences were very limited. I thought I knew something about the world, but then once I actually started walking and entered into Mexico and Central America and on down, I realized, oh no, you don't know anything about the world, and you have no sense of the world. And so I would say the mental evolution is just having a much greater sense of what the world is actually like, what matters in people's lives, what makes a difference in people's lives, just how the world functions. Now pretty much, this isn't like a direct indicator of mental evolution, but every week now, pretty much, I read The Economist front to cover. And before, that was something that would never interest me, just because I didn't know enough about the world to kind of relate to these places. And pretty far into my walk, maybe in Georgia or something, I started looking for like newsletters or anything just to kind of stay up to date on these places that I had become pretty connected to. And I found The Economist eventually did the best job of that. And so, yeah, I get all these weird stories about, I don't know, like a tea salesman in India, or a revolution, or fighting for for democracy in Georgia. And so that is something now that, like, before would have been unfathomable. I would have had no interest in that. So that is kind of the mental evolution. So long answer to the 3-part question, but I hope it does the job.
I think it's amazing. It's an amazing answer. So how would you describe the world? How is world with 3 adjectives, before and after your journey?
How is the world?
Yes.
How did I perceive the world?
How would you describe it to the, I don't know, the extraterrestrial?
Yeah. Before I did the walk, I think I would have had a much more, US centric view of the world. Not to say that that's like necessarily a bad thing. I just hadn't left much. And I think I would have thought the world is more determined by someone's willpower and someone's drive than it actually is. And so after, I would describe it as a place filled with very well-intentioned people everywhere who want to hang out with their friends and family, make enough money to live, and who are striving, but in reality are decided by the greater forces around them, by the geography they're born into, the economy they're born into, the politics they're born into, and the family that raised them. And so, yeah, I think that was one of the big realizations of the walk as well, is where when you're young, you think you can just work your way through anything and make anything happen. And after meeting enough people who, were clearly smarter than I was, clearly more driven than I was, clearly kinder than I was, were, just a farmer somewhere, or we're selling gasoline to passing trucks in Peru, or we're, running a small restaurant, which turned out amazing food in the middle of nowhere kind of thing. And so you realize that, I was very fortunate to be born in a wealthy state in the wealthiest country in the world, to have an American passport, to work a job with US dollars. And I was the one passing through these places because of a lot of luck and a lot of happenstance, not just because of my willpower.
I think you summed it up really quite well on page 106, where you say, I think this was about a year and a half into the walk, lying, and this is excerpt, lying there, flattened by the multitude of stars, I realized I had turned over my life. I had nothing left to resolve. The stars poured through me, shedding the self and annihilating the ego. I'm getting chills. You are nothing, they said. You are nothing. You are nothing. You are nothing. It wasn't antagonism. It wasn't fact. It wasn't anything. Brilliant.
Thank you. Yeah, that was I love that. I love that excerpt. That was the culmination of, a year and a half of walking, and then about 5 months at that point of walking in the desert. And in the desert where there's really no distractions, and often I didn't have any internet, and I had run out of podcasts, and I was listening to the same music. Then it got really granular with my thoughts. And then in the Atacama Desert, which is the driest desert in the world in Chile, the stars were just unbelievable every night. Every night you could see the Milky Way. You would see a million stars. And again, it's the difference between intellectually knowing something and understanding something, where you see the stars and you get a sense of it, and you also know, okay, the universe is massive and the galaxy is massive, and you're just on this little pale blue dot. But the difference between laying under those stars every night for a month and really feeling them and having them crush you is a different sort of experience. And I think that was the culmination of, this year and a half of, just going through in this constant meditation, and then, realizing how small we are in the scope of things.
If you could come back 10 years ago, what are any advices you would give to yourself?
I think the only thing I would say, because, it's like kind of like the butterfly effect, the way I feel about it, where it's like I survived the walk around the world, so I don't really want to change anything. I did it. I feel very content. I would say the only thing I would do is I would always have like really good tick protection for Savannah, because I use a lot of off-brand stuff, and that's when I couldn't find anything else, and that might be, it's not sure, but might be what ultimately ended her life. And so that would maybe buy me another 3 years or so with Savannah.
And again, y'all can read about this, and just briefly to put things in perspective, what started you, what was your inspiration, was a couple of various things, but the death of a dear high school friend of his, Anne Marie, and then another girl named Shannon, who I think was a friend of yours, girlfriend. And then another inspiration came from learning about Steve Newman and Carl Bushby, a former world walkers, and I think what put the topper on it, you said, was you were in class, I think, or something, and the teacher or somebody put on Dead Poets Society, and that sort of gave you the pow.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it came. So first it was Anne-Marie's passing, which kind of woke me to, the fact that I was going to die. Again, something new intellectually, but when she passed, then it was really, oh man, if Anne-Marie can die, then so can I. So that awoke me to my own mortality. And then it was a couple months later, someone played Dead Poet Society. And then that was like so formative. I was 17. I was in search of answers. I was primed for it. And so it just struck me right when I needed it to. And so then I was doing everything, signed up for the swim team, was waking up at 5 a.m. to swim every morning, then joined the one-act play. And then after that, I would just say yes to anything my friends wanted to do. And at a certain point, I realized, oh, like, you only have so much energy and there's so much time in the day, and not everything brings you equal satisfaction. That should be obvious. But when you're trying to carpe diem and maximize everything, at a certain point, it maxes out and you realize, okay, you have to choose something. So then I reflected on, what do I want out of life? When it's all said and done, what will I have been happy that I did? What will I have valued? And ultimately came to answer, wanted to travel, wanted to be forced into adventure because I was timid and introverted. I wanted to grow out of that, and I wanted to understand the world. And then I started looking for ways to travel, and I didn't have any money. So I was looking for cheap ways to travel, and I discovered Steve Newman and Carl Bushby, and that sort of represented like the perfect idea that aligned with my values. And when I do public speaking, motivational speaking now for a living, and this is kind of one of the primary ideas that I talk about is, setting a flag that is aligned with your values. And that's when it becomes sustainable. Later in the book, as you read, when I got really sick and I ended up in Europe, that was probably my darkest time. And when I would play out in my mind, I would go, okay, like say you give up the walk and you go home and you're with your friends and family like you want to be, and you can get a drink with your friends and you can go to Sunday dinner with your grandparents. What would that life actually look like? And then I would play that against, okay, yes, I'm like miserable right now after getting over the sickness in Europe. And that does sound very appealing, going back home, being with your friends. But when I played it out in my mind, it just didn't fulfill anything that I valued. So like having that goal aligned with the values really helped me persevere through something that was insanely difficult and wouldn't have been possible otherwise. If it didn't, I've had a bunch of people ask for advice on walking around the world. And I'm like, it's not easy. It's not something that like you can do on a whim. You really have to be like on fire with this idea, because you're going through the jungle, you're going to sleep in weird places. It's going to be really stressful, especially in the beginning. And then after the immediate stress, then you're just away from everyone you love for years and years and years. And that wears on you. So there's a lot of layers of difficulty. And if you don't have a real value-based belief behind why you're walking around the world, why you're doing something massive like this, it's just not going to stand. It's not going to stand when you get pushed, really.
A passion. You got to have that passion.
You got to have the passion. Absolutely.
So what are those values that moved you there?
Yeah, the values, like it was so the way I did it was kind of like I'd imagine myself, say like on my deathbed, essentially, way in the future. I'm looking back and I would think, okay, what did you get out of life? What did you want? And, I wanted to understand the world in the sense of, I would live in this massive, beautiful world. I'd only seen one little corner of it. That is something I valued. I wanted to see the world, and that, traveling was part of it. The adventure was a part of it. I was young at the time. I wanted to grow as much as I could. So the adventure was part of the growth. And then the understanding, I wanted to understand the world. So I think the traveling and the, traveling was important to me just because I'd only seen that little part of the world. And then being forced into adventure was that young, like, how can I test myself? How much can I grow? What can I become, kind of thing. And then the understanding was the other part of it, just because I kind of knew also at the time that I had seen very little of the world, and I wanted to change. I wanted to see the world outside of books, kind of thing. And I love reading, but I wanted to really understand the world. So I think it was those three things that fulfilled the world walk. And, values change over time as well, and your life changes. But yeah, when I was young, that's what I was really looking for.
And speaking of Bushby, was it a little cafe in Chile that you came across. He was at that cafe like you were, and I guess he wrote something or something. It was on the wall.
That's right. Yeah. So that was in Peru. And it was a little restaurant in the middle of the desert that I didn't see on the map. I had no idea it was there. I was deep in the desert at that point. It's one of my favorite chapters in the book. And I had spoken to Bushby actually before I started the walk, and he gave me advice. And so he was already like even more kind of important to me and tied to this idea of walking around the world. And at that point, when I was in the desert, it's pretty low where I was. It felt very gray. I felt very numb to things. Just the desert was wearing on me. And then I came into this restaurant, not expecting to be there. And then on the wall, is this kind of shrine to Bushby. And I get called back by the owner to this back room, and he has 4 massive books, 4 tomes of just notes from cyclists, motorcyclists that pass through. And he says, we've only had one other walker. And he opens the page, and it's this note from Carl Bushby, who was there and must have been something like 14 years earlier or 12 years earlier. I can't remember exactly. And it was kind of just like this motivational note saying, go for it, dream on, you crazy mothers, you. And it was just exactly what I needed right then. And it really revitalized me. And it also felt very much like full circle, very serendipitous.
You have mentioned sometimes like being human and being a greater human. How is a greater human?
When I was younger, I couldn't have defined it, I would say. I thought it was just some sort of, again, ascension, transcension, something beyond human. But I think really it's like embracing your humanity. It's trying to stop running away from it in the sense of knowing your limitations. And, what makes people happy is, some exercise, sunshine, eating well, community. Like those are simple things, and getting a good sleep. And the more you embrace them, I think the more like wisdom that shows really, and the more you're living a good life. And then also I think on top of that is if you can remove your ego as much as possible from, I think a couple of things, like your expectations of life, in the sense of, I think people get really upset and are really disappointed when life doesn't work out the way they hope it works out, or things are taking longer than they think it should. But it's not as if you were born and someone gave you a contract and said, this is what life is like. You don't know what life is like. This is your first time here, and you're very small, and the world is very big. And so I think like the healthiest way that you can look at things is when something happens, something unexpected happens, you say, oh, wow, I had no idea that this is what life was like. This is it. How curious. So I think if you can remove your ego in that way and sort of look at life always with fresh eyes, or trying to look at it with fresh eyes, I think is very healthy and wise. And I would also say, kindness is like a sign of, a sign of wisdom, a sign of a higher humanity. I think because it recognizes that other people are basically living in separate universes and they have their own struggles, and that a lot of the surface level stuff, say money or desire for notoriety or power or even shelter, all those things are surface level things compared to happiness. Like happiness, that's the only fundamental like measure, basically. You want shelter so you can be happy, you want money so you can be happy. It's the same for everyone. So I think if you're kind, you're going to the root source of things and making the world a better place in one small way that you can.
I love what you just said.
Yeah, thank you.
So Tom, if you could measure, where do you find yourself from 1 to 10? 10 being absolutely that you are describing. So where do you find yourself?
I would say pretty far along. Yeah. Maybe an 8 or something like that. I don't know. It's hard to say. I haven't lived everyone's experiences. And I definitely still have an ego. I think you always have some ego. That's immutable. You're human. And then, not always perfectly kind, and you get frustrated at things, but that's life. But I think overall, doing a pretty good job.
Good job.
You have encountered many people along your walk. Have any of them remained lifelong friends?
Yeah, I have a bunch of people that I stay close with. There's a group in particular in Kaş in Turkey where I got holed up during COVID. And so a couple of girls from Britain and Turkey were there, a friend in Iceland, Germany, Australia, we're all kind of there together. And, it was rare on the walk that I was able to form such deep bonds, because usually I was just passing through and I'd make a lot of connections, but they weren't necessarily very deep. But that group that I spent time with in Turkey during COVID, that was a group of people that I still remain in touch with, and hopefully they'll all be coming to my wedding.
And okay, you've met several women along the way. We have Valerie in San Sebastian, Yari in Turkey, two, I think, maybe Isabella in Spain.
Isabella in San Sebastian, and then Valerie in Azerbaijan. Yeah.
Oh, right. And then, of course, near the end of your walk, who does he meet? His wife. Well, he's
fiance.
Right now, who will soon be his wife, Bonnie. Please elaborate on that.
Yeah. So I think there's this constant tug and push when you're out there, doing something like this, when you're out walking around the world, is that, the adventure is part of the draw, but the other part of it, at least to me, was this real need to, have a deep connection, have a meaningful connection. And, I, grew up, again, like I said, with a very tight-knit family, a lot of cousins, all that. And so I very much wanted, this family life as well. But I was, juxtaposed against living this life where I'm always on the move. And so I think part of me was always trying to capture little bits of that and hoping for that, but then structurally not being able to. And then towards the end of the walk, very fortunate where I'm just a few weeks into walking the US, and I just crossed over the Northern Cascades National Forest, and I stopped to rest for a few days and do some writing. And I met this girl, Bonnie, who was doing her internal medicine rotation there. She's in medical school, and we just hit it off. And then she followed me around basically where I was walking, and she would drive out to meet me. And she met me in Washington a few times, and then she met me in Idaho and Montana and Wyoming and in Colorado, and then all the way out in Pennsylvania. And I say that I met a lot of people. I met a lot of people in life, and she was, by far the best. And I mean that. She's a great person, and she's really intelligent, and she's very kind and very well intentioned. And I think we're both at our core are humanists, in the sense that we believe in people and believe in the goodness of people, and that if you give them what they need to succeed or need to live a good life, they will. And so I think it worked out as well as I could have possibly hoped.
When's the wedding?
We're looking for a venue, so it's dependent on that. But I would say her dad always says that I should have walked in the other direction, and I would have met her earlier.
Oh my. I have very personal for me questions. I need to ask it. I live in Madrid, and the Spaniards claim Victoria Beckham saying that Spain smells of garlic. She never said that, but well, it's something that is like a pain for them. Tom, what about Spain?
I love Spain. Spain got me into olives, which is one of the great, thank God that's a huge change from me before to me after. I can't imagine not enjoying it. It's very American of me to have only, enjoyed processed food and cereal and all that. So the world expanded my palate a lot. But I remember on the Camino, which also got me out of this long darkness that I had after this bacterial infection, that was this incredible community. And so I'm really grateful for that. And I still recommend the Camino to people all the time, especially older people who want an adventure, but don't want to, destroy themselves or put themselves at crazy risks. and want the community and wine and to sleep in a hotel. I'm like, the Camino, do the Camino. It's amazing. But on the Camino, that's where, I'd get into a bar and, they have the olives there sitting on the bar. And that got me, because I'd be so hungry and I'd be so thirsty, that got me into olives. And then later on, I was in Valencia. I have a friend in Valencia, and I stayed with him while I was waiting for this Algerian visa. And I remember going with his friend's dad to go pick up olive oil from some guy. And that was the first time I saw like pure, real olive oil, really like green, so green it's almost gold olive oil, not even gold, like just like a thing of beauty. And so that changed me as well. And I was, living in a Valencian caseta where I was pulling pomegranates from the trees and Valencian oranges and all that. Spain is incredible. It's incredible. I was amazed at how dry it was. Also in the center, I didn't really realize how dry a lot of Spain is, but incredibly beautiful, wonderful people. The cities are incredible. I love Barcelona and what they're doing with the super blocks there and how they're pedestrianizing and kind of removing the car dependency step by step.
You bring that up in your TED talk, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, that's a big structural thing, that I believe in, where I think you can make people a lot happier if you can pedestrianize your cities and your neighborhoods. It just humanizes things a lot more. And I think Barcelona was one of the spearheads of kind of that movement and enacting it. So yeah, Spain, that holds a warm place in my heart for sure.
Now, Tom, if you could come back, 10 years ago, would your route be the same?
I think it would be, only because of the way I drew the route was out of certain pressures, certain necessities. I drew it because I wanted to hit every continent. And so I did that with that in mind. And then it was after that, the secondary thing was based on is like, how do I do this with as little visa trouble as possible? And so that's why basically in South America, I went to the West into Peru and Chile versus Brazil, because Brazil, you have a visa, it would have ran out. And then a similar thing in Africa. Well, Africa is just so massive. It would have taken me probably 3 years to walk down it. And you need visas for a lot of the countries. So it's like, all right, I'll just skim North Africa. And then in Asia, the reason I headed north and initially intended to go to Mongolia, I got stopped because of COVID. I wasn't able to get to Kazakhstan, Mongolia, and Australia because of COVID. But initially, that route was just the easiest visa-wise. Whereas if I had went south, either through the Middle East or even through India and then through Southeast Asia, again, you need visas for a lot of those countries. And so it's kind of just like, I'm just going to let visa friendliness be my guide. And I think it was the right decision, because otherwise, like for Algeria, for example, I ended up waiting, I think it was like a month and a half, maybe 2 months for the visa to come through. And then for Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan in particular, I had to fly home to like go to the US embassy, talk to them, get the passport. So the visas add a lot of complications. So I'm pretty happy with the route. It made it easier bureaucratically.
Was there any place you are missing or would like to go?
Yeah, Mongolia for sure. I feel like I had a taste of it in Kyrgyzstan. In Kyrgyzstan, I walked with a horseman and a guide and horses carrying our stuff, and it was very bucolic and idyllic. It was incredible. And I feel like Mongolia is the same thing, but on the steppe. And so I'd love to have that experience. I was really looking forward to it. Unfortunately, wasn't able to get there. And again, I have a globe downstairs, and it's just, I walked for 7 years and I still have seen none of the world, which is so crazy. So there's still a lot of places I would like to go to, especially sub-Saharan Africa. I'd love to, explore sub-Saharan Africa, which I haven't been to.
If you could pick top five of places that impacted you the most, what would be those places? And with one word, what did they leave in you?
Okay, I would say Denmark, number one, which would be bikeability. Bikeability. Georgia, number two, which would be democracy. I would say Colombia, maybe number three, which would say vibrancy. I would say Chile, which would say stars, and then probably the U.S. Should just say home, but it's kind of, I did the US in the beginning and at the end. And so it was interesting to see it just with fresh eyes after having walked the world and coming back and seeing your country anew. But yeah, I would say those are the 5. It's a good question.
You started out to the south, heading down Mexico, Central America, and then I think you flew back to Seattle and then took the northern route back home to New Jersey.
Correct. Yeah. Yep. Thank you.
Just so everybody knows, you are now in Kentucky. I don't think we said that. But
yeah. Now in Cincinnati. Bonnie is doing her residency here.
I was born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. So there you go.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's a good town.
Listen, I also want to mention too, you guys out there, Tom has another book that actually I want to get, and it's about his Savannah, his dog, and it's called Savannah's World of Adventure, Crossing the Andes. I'm so excited to read it.
Yeah, it's a really nice children's book. Hopefully the start of a series. My mom's the illustrator. She's been a professional illustrator her whole life. They're beautiful watercolors. And we're working on the second one now, which is set in Kyrgyzstan. And so hopefully maybe end of spring, be able to release that one. So yeah, really, it's just a very heartfelt, nice little adventure where for kids, you get to see a bit of the world and places you don't know about with a dog.
Like advice not to do or never do that for a person who would like to start this experience.
You want to respect the culture that you're in. It's the sign of a bad traveler to go into a place expecting it to bend to your will and to your expectations. And so when you are traveling to a place, try and be as good of a guest as you can and allow the place to come to you and without, again, as best you can without any bias, which is, very difficult and probably not realistic. And if you travel like this long enough, the benefit of it is you'll begin to really be able to feel places in a way that you wouldn't be able to otherwise. If you travel with certain expectations, you're just a tourist in these places. And when the food isn't up to snuff, then you're angry it's not up to snuff. If, it's too loud, you're angry it's loud. If the weather isn't, submitting to your will, then the trip is bad. But if you are able to travel long enough without expectation, then you get the sense of places in a way that you wouldn't otherwise. And you're able to pick up on the subtleties of places and notice the differences between places and say one place does this better and the other place does this better. And then, they use this ingredient for this. And that it allows you to see a place much better when you can travel as a good guest.
Have you ever felt any an inner conflict in yourself, seeing some cultural aspects that you don't maybe accept or you don't feel comfortable with?
Oh yeah. Definitely. There's some countries that are not great to women, to say the least. And I think that is not only just plain wrong, it's very short-sighted of these places to count these women so short. So there's that for sure. And then also, I'm able to criticize my own country, which is a great blessing. It's not every country you can go into is able to criticize their country. And so I think that's something that we in the US can take for granted, the ability to just rant and rage as much as we want. And so when you go to some places where they don't, it's very noticeable, but it's very subtle, but it's also very pervasive in this way where you realize people are just sort of truncating their thoughts and they're biting their lip a little bit. They're not saying things that, they want to say, and it's hard to get an honest opinion out of people. And so I'd say that is frustrating, but that's not necessarily even a culture thing. That's more an oppression thing. And it can be very, very frustrating.
So how do you leave that and how do you address that conflict?
Yeah, it's challenging because I'm fortunate enough not to be born under an autocrat. And there's a reason that people are biting their tongues, because people get arrested and they get put away, or they their business gets shut down. There's a lot of things that can happen. And so, those are survival instincts, and they're learned behaviors for a reason. And so, I mean, and also every country is different. Every country has a different, a different form of oppression in that way. And no country's perfect. Yeah, there's no easy solution, but I would say the value of democracy is incredible. I would say even in just the feeling of a place. I remember going from Uzbekistan to Kyrgyzstan in particular, or even from Georgia to Azerbaijan. It was a 1-2, Georgia being very democratic and Azerbaijan not being so. But I think it's in both of those, the autocracies, Azerbaijan and Uzbekistan, are objectively wealthier. The per capita is wealthier. Both have a little oil wealth, particularly in Azerbaijan, gas and oil wealth. But the feeling is just totally different. And the conversations are more boring, and the newspapers are not quite as revealing, and maybe people dress a little more conservatively. I remember going from Uzbekistan to Kyrgyzstan. It's like Kyrgyzstan is a pretty poor country, and Uzbekistan is wealthier. But to get into Kyrgyzstan was just like, it's like a breath of fresh air in some way. And Uzbekistan is incredible also. I loved Uzbekistan, incredible country. But there is this like exhalation that happens under a democracy where people can be themselves and they can express themselves freely, and they can dress how they want. They can have the conversations that they want. It's really subtle, but it's very pervasive. So, I mean, it's just something that is worth, fighting for, and something that shouldn't be undervalued.
You mentioned the concept of happiness. So is happiness a journey or a destination?
Both, I guess, in the sense of every moment is a destination, but also life is just all a journey in a certain way. I think you have to find joy in the process of whatever you're doing, because whenever, just the way we're wired, there's no final point. You will never get somewhere and just be perfectly satisfied for the rest of your life. It's just not going to happen. It doesn't matter what you achieve. So whatever work you're doing, whatever relationship you're in, you have to find happiness in it day to day. And again, that's like aligning your life with your values. That's how you do that. I forget that there's some German word, I think, where it's the unhappiness that comes from your expectations to your reality. The closer you can align those, or just align your life with your values, I think the happier you are day to day.
Currently, what journey are you on now?
I say the challenge for me is being in a city where I don't know that many people, where it's winter right now. Surrounded by a lot of doctors who are very odd. Doctors are a weird bunch. They're very studious, and I've never been extremely studious, so they're pretty opposed to who I am, personality wise. And so I would say right now, I'm also like very content right now. I'm really happy. I go to sleep pretty easily. I wake up pretty easily. My day is happy. I think the weakest point in my life is probably the community right now. And that's a difficult thing to resolve, because it takes a long time to build certain connections. But in summer and in spring and in fall, I play pickleball, and that does a lot for my mental health.
What's a typical day like for you right now?
So right now it's wake up. I probably maybe work on the talk a little bit, and then I walk to the library. I read for a while, maybe write for a while, come back, watch an Eagles podcast, which is like my American football team, have lunch, maybe read some more, and then maybe Bonnie gets home and we have dinner together, and life is good.
And what are you reading right now?
Right now I'm reading the second book in the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series.
Oh,
so
right.
That's the fiction I'm reading. Always reading some fiction. That's great. But I would say the nonfiction, the most recent nonfiction that I've read, which is phenomenal, is 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals. And it's just a really good kind of productivity book where it gives you a good idea of how to think about time in a way that isn't totally productivity focused.
Interesting. So right now we have come to a thing that we are calling the Turing Tom game. The Turing Tom game, which means exploring and discovering more about our guest. Yes. What is your favorite food?
Oh, my favorite food, peanut butter jelly.
Oh my. And your favorite color?
Blue.
Name a favorite book.
Great Gatsby. Yeah, read that. Read that so many times.
Favorite hotel in your journey?
Oh man, I could do a couple, but I would say out of necessity in the U.S. When I was walking in winter, there was a chain. I want to say it was Cobblestone Inn, I think, in the American West. And I was walking through winter. It's so snowy. I'm so tired. I'm so sore. And they were pet friendly, and the beds were so comfortable. And I would always come to this place like in such a desperate need. So yeah, that was a great chain.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what about your favorite film?
The Fountain is really great with Hugh Jackman. It's about basically a man coming to terms with his mortality. The Fountain, yeah, it's by Darren Aronofsky. Really beautifully shot and an incredible score behind it.
Name a favorite part of your body.
Favorite part of my body, my legs for taking me around the world.
Could you show them? Oh, sorry.
It's too far down. The calves aren't as strong as they once were. They're pretty small now.
And what about your favorite sport to watch or play?
Tennis. Gotta be tennis. Love watching it, love playing it. You know, played it in high school and in college. Just a great sport. So much of it is mental.
Are you keeping up on your Spanish?
No, I should be. Man, it's such a shame because I spoke such good Spanish at the time, and it's just out the window now. I haven't spoken it in like 5 years. So no, unfortunately, I need to whenever I make some money, I'll hire a tutor and get back into it.
Oh my, la próxima entrevista la hacemos en español, entonces.
Fantastic.
We'll make it in
Sounds
Spanish.
good.
I mean, the next
And I've never been to Madrid, so that's perfect.
Oh, you have to go. That's where Vladdy and I met. We lived in Madrid for a year. Just like you, I love España. Love it. I want to go back. I really do. Now you are a psychology major, and so you got your degree in what and from what college?
Psychology philosophy from Moravian College in Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Who is your favorite philosopher?
Oh.
I mean, I don't know if he's like a philosopher, but he's Marcus Aurelius is kind of like Meditations is my go-to. I've read it maybe 7 times. It was kind of my go-to book throughout the walk for wisdom, I would say. But I guess you could consider him a Stoic philosopher. Other than that, I really enjoyed reading Nietzsche back in the day. It's kind of a go-to, but he's very entertaining. The Road to Zarathustra is it's a very entertaining philosophy book.
Do you have a favorite guru or a self-help guru that you turn to?
No, I would say fallen out of favor with, or they've fallen out of my favor. When I was younger, I was really all about the self-help stuff and trying, to squeeze every bit out of myself and every bit of productivity out of myself. But I think, one of the things also that when you get into like the motivational speaking world is that just a lot of nonsense out there and people just trying to come up with something marketable to sell and not actually providing that much actionable, useful wisdom.
Talking about wisdom, if you imagine in 150 years, some sort of that, not less, in your monuments, what phrase would sum up your wisdom?
What is it? What's that poem? It's like, it's Ozymandias, here lies the great empire of, look out, behold. I get some traveler comes along. I forget the poem. It's called Ozymandias. But a traveler comes upon, the statue of this great emperor in the middle of the desert, and the statue's broken and everything is desert. So I don't need a monument, don't want a monument, don't want anything. Just turn me to dust.
What actor do you see playing the biopic of your life?
Maybe Tom Holland. He and I kind of look alike, I guess. He's young enough. Yeah, he could do young me and then older me as I walk more.
That's interesting. I thought about Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Great, yeah.
I thought about Ryan Gosling, James Franco,
Okay,
Macaulay Culkin, Daniel Radcliffe, and Paul Mescal.
Great, love him. One of them's got to go for it.
You mean Ryan Gosling as he was in Barbie movie?
There you go.
That's good.
I'm not that strong.
If you could spend an evening, including dinner with some notable, who would it be?
Gotta be Steve McCurry, which maybe will happen. But yeah, he's like a National Geographic photographer. He shot Afghan Girl. For me, he's maybe the greatest photographer of all time, and still living, and seems like a really kind, intelligent guy. Would love to have dinner with him.
Do you know where he lives?
He lives in New York. His studio's in Pennsylvania. We actually message every once in a while, and he has my book. I'm not sure if he's read it, but yeah, I mean, distinct possibility that we get dinner someday.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Wow. What is the last thing you do before you turn the lights off before you go to bed?
I actually, I put on a comedy podcast. I got into this habit when I was walking, I think, because so often I wouldn't talk to anyone. I would like, not always, but I would fall asleep to a podcast sometimes. And so I still have that habit. And yeah, I don't know if it's, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I have this comedy podcast, which is just so absurd and stupid. And so that puts me right to sleep, basically.
Do you have a favorite comic?
I like Anthony Jeselnik. I think he's pretty funny. He's got good one-liners. I think he's like, as a craftsman, you're like, man, he's like crafting these jokes. So like, I appreciate that. You know, I love Seinfeld growing up. That was amazing show. I watched that a million times. A lot of great comics out there. Yeah.
What happens after we die?
I would say that life goes on, and the memory of you'll be forgotten, and then the memory of you will be forgotten. And really all that matters is if you left the world just slightly better than you came into it. But yeah, just life goes on.
That's lovely. It sounds like you really conquered a lot of fear, if not fear itself, by your world walk. Is there anything you fear now?
My fiance and I were just having this conversation at a dinner with friends. Yeah, I feel like the deep ocean. I don't want to be in the deep ocean. It freaks me out for whatever reason. I don't like not being the apex predator, having these things swimming around me. It's an alien world down there. No, thank you.
Love it.
Well, our last question for today. Please choose one word or a short phrase to describe Tom Turcich.
Oh, man, right now I'd say calm. Yeah.
Calm.
Calm, C-A-L-M. Yeah. I'll say right now that's how I feel, very at peace. But I shouldn't extrapolate on that. Just calm.
It shows on your face, and it comes across to me, and I think to Vladdy too. Even across the screen. So I like that. Calm. Yeah. I can't believe we're out of time. We have so enjoyed having you, and we feel very honored to have you here. And thank you for this encouraging discussion today. It's been a joy to get to know you better. And thank you for coming on to Evoking Evolvement. And you guys out there, I'm telling you right now, you have got to read this. Exciting and enthralling. I could go on and on with adjectives, but I won't. You pick it up. The World Walk is all about global travel, and you don't even have to, leave your living room. And or you can be inspired to walk your own walk.
Indeed. Thank you to our audience as well. We appreciate your comments, and click on the thumbs up under this episode.
Thank you so much, guys.
Adios.
Ciao.
From
Ciao.
Spain, California, and Kentucky.
Of all places.
Adios. Ciao, ciao.
Adios.